Hi everyone, so I will be walking you through the MS lab procedure. So the first step is to weigh 50 milligrams of the soy flour into an Erlenmeyer flask, so I'll do that first. So after you weigh your samples, then you'll add the 10 mils of acetonitrile, and you can measure that by graduated cylinder. Okay, and then after you measure out 10 milliliters, you'll add that to the Erlenmeyer flask with your soy flour. And then add the stir bar and stir for 5 minutes on a stir plate. After stirring for 5 minutes with the acetonitrile, then you'll add 9 milliliters of water. So, you can measure the water by using a graduated cylinder again. You can use a transfer pipette to get the correct volume. So then take your sample that's been stirring, add the water, and then place back on the stir plate, and then that'll stir for 2 hours. So the TAs have prepared a sample that has already been stirring for 2 hours that will move forward. So once you're done adding water and acetonitrile to the soy flour, you'll then take the samples that have been stirring for 2 hours, prepared by the TAs, and transfer to a 50 ml centrifuge tube. And you'll want to label that with your group name and the replicate that it is, and soy flour. So to transfer, you'll take your flask, use another stir bar to hold the stir bar in place, pour in, and then you want to quantitatively transfer, so you will rinse with 3 1 milliliter rinses, basically, making sure that you pour the acetonitrile along the sides. So you're rinsing this Erlenmeyer flask with acetonitrile. And this will help ensure that all of the solids have been removed. Okay. And then we're ready to centrifuge, and I'll help you with that. So after centrifuging, you'll then want to filter using a Buchner funnel, the supernatant, and this is just to make sure that no solids are in the sample at all. So you'll do this 1 rep at a time. So we'll filter using the Buchner funnel and then transfer into a round bottom flask to then rotovap. So I'll walk you through that. So turn on the pump. And there's a filter paper in here. You can see that. Once you add your sample, a vacuum will fall. And then, once everything is passed through, you'll turn off the pump, disconnect the flask. And then you'll want to quantitatively transfer into the round bottom flask, rinsing 3 times with 1 milliliter rinses to make sure that it's quantitative. So you'll pour in and then rinse. I'm not going to go over that, same thing as last time. After rotovapping, which I'll show you in class, the samples then need to be freeze dried. So I'll show you that in the video, our freeze dryer, and how that works. Okay, after rotovapping your samples, then they will be frozen and then placed in these freeze dryer flasks and then placed on this freeze dryer system. So how this works is it's at a low temperature. So here it's at negative 82 degrees. Then it's under a vacuum as well. So the low temperature and the vacuum pulls moisture from your samples via sublimation. And then the moisture, so the water, collects down here and freezes in there. So after 5 or so days on this system, your samples should be dried and ready to go. So you can take the flask off and then your samples should be totally dried. After freeze drying, then we need to reconstitute the samples and filter them to prepare them for the MS. So you'll take your freeze dried sample in the 50 ml centrifuge tube, add 10 milliliters of 80% methanol, and then vortex to solubilize. Okay, so after vortexing for 2 minutes, then we'll move on to the filtering step. So you'll filter these just like you did for the HPLC. So you have the syringe, remove the plunger, and then attach your filter. And then you can use a transfer pipette to take about 1 to 1.5 milliliters of solution, because that's all that can fit in the vial. And then we'll filter directly into the vial. Okay, and then your sample is ready for the MS.